Hello everyone, thank you for joining today's webinar. I'll just wait a few more moments before we get started so that anyone that wants to join has a bit more time. So I will talk to you in a minute. Okay. Hello everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar on AI and chatbots. I hope you're staying safe and well out there wherever you are in the world. So AI and chatbots is certainly an interesting topic within the context of ITSM, and we've got some really excellent speakers today. So first up, we'll have Ed Perez, who is Senior Business Consultant at Axios Systems, and Ed has over 20 years IT experience in planning and designing technology solutions. We also have Clayton Black, who is the Business Development Manager at Brainpool AI and is responsible for leading sales and marketing. Brainpool is actually an AI consultancy firm, so I'm sure we'll have tons of interesting content for you today. So we should have both Ed and Clayton on the line.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you both for joining us today. I'm really looking forward to what you're going to be sharing with us. So I will hand straight over to Ed.
All right. Thank you very much. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to do a quick rundown of the agenda for today's session. And of course, we're going to do some introductions on Brainpool and Axios for people who aren't familiar with our organizations. And then we're going to dive directly into friend or foe. And what do we mean by that when we mention, in the contents of a chatbot for ITSM? So we'll have some great information regarding those areas. And then we're going to hear from Clayton as he speaks about the idea of AI and how it came to fruition, and a gentleman by the name of Alan Turing and his thoughts on AI. We're going to follow that with the current trends that we're seeing in the ITSM industry for chatbot. We'll follow that with technology landscape around a chatbot. And then we're actually going to do a use case. We're going to walk through a use case scenario of the Assist chatbot integration, followed by the sky's the limit. What other use cases can we address with chatbot? We'll speak on benefits, and then we'll also speak about key performance indicators. So what are the measurements that we can provide to upper management if we invest in a chatbot technology? Clayton's going to tell us about the predictions for the future. And then we're going to end it on Q&A. So let's get started. I'm turning it over to Clayton and give us a little information about Brainpool. Clayton? Clayton, I think you're on mute right now.
Yeah, sorry everyone. But hi everyone, thank you for your time today. My name is Clayton Black and I'm the Business Development Manager at Brainpool AI. To expand on what Scarlett mentioned before, Brainpool is an AI consultancy that provides end-to-end product development services, but we in particular specialize in developing AI and machine learning solutions. What makes Brainpool very unique compared to a lot of other AI consultancies and specialists is that we have a network of over 400 experts around the world in a discipline of data science. And this network is really what enables us to provide the flexibility and comprehensive service to our clients, regardless of the industry that they're in or the type of AI challenge that they're looking to address. So what does that look like from our perspective? Well, AI is a very versatile and far-flung discipline. So before we take on any challenge, it's generally essential to get an idea of what the client wants to achieve and also formulate the best approach to actually delivering on their objectives. We generally begin, like most consultancies, with an approach that we call the scoping program. So that's about going in, understanding the feasibility of the objectives our clients would like to achieve, but also then developing a strategy, a roadmap, and a preliminary costing of what that looks like so that they can make the most informed business decision that they can. If anyone's interested in learning any more, please feel free to drop me a line at clayton@brainpool.ai or visit brainpool.ai, which is our website. Thanks, Ed.
You're welcome. So a little information about Axios. All right. So Axios is a SaaS and on-premise solution. We're not a platform. We're a solution that's 100% focused on enterprise service management. So whether you're addressing IT service management or IT operations management or even business service management, Axios can provide solutions for you. Axios has has offices in over 21 countries globally. Also, we invest a lot of our revenue on R&D to constantly see the growth within Assist. And Assist is the solution that provides this ITSM and ITOM focus. Also, some other things that we like to point out about Axios is that we're well recognized by the industry analysts out there. We're actually the first vendor to achieve pink verification in all 16 processes. We've been recognized by Gartner as being on the Magic Quadrant for the last 20 years. So Axios does have a solution for you when it comes to ITSM or ITOM. Once again, it's SaaS or on-premise. And once again, we're 100% focused on enterprise service management. So let's get started on today's session. Friend or foe? So when we talk about chatbot, a lot of conversations are around whether it's a aid to ITSM or actually a hindrance to ITSM. Some of the areas that we hear about are like, let's say, if I do introduce a chatbot technology into ITSM, will it incur loss of work for members of the organization? And really, it's quite the opposite. There are statistics that have shown that organizations that have implemented chatbot have opened up new doors for their existing staff. That way, their staff can develop into other areas such as development, operations, marketing, and more. Another area we hear a lot about is loss of drive. Loss of, let's say, being focused on your particular task at hand. And it's kind of more along the same lines, same vein as above. With new direction comes enhanced drive. The thirst for new knowledge. With revived interest, it spawns interest of new directions. So it really does improve your work life when you incur something as this chatbot. Another thing we hear pretty often is, well, artificial intelligence can't do everything. Well, it's kind of true because language is at its heart about communication. And communication is an intensely human experience. We follow that with empathy. One thing that makes us truly human is the ability to empathize. Robots can perform basic human interactions such as customer service via telephone, but no matter how highly developed they are, they will not have this innate ability to connect with and understand other humans on an emotional level. And then finally, we have planning. What if you've ever played an online game? Okay. And you understand that playing against the computer can be just like playing against a human. Games are bound by rules and outcome. It's predictable and easily mastered by a computer. But in reality, the future can be estimated but not entirely predictable. There are tasks that require a human input to navigate shifts in priority, gaps in formation, an unknown outcome. And that kind of brings us to our first poll question. So the first poll question will be, do you feel your chatbot initiative is a friend or a foe? And some possible answers we see here are friend, foe, my initiative is on the roadmap, or it's still in development. So we're going to give you a few minutes to read the question and come up with your answer. And as you do that, other areas that we'll be covering next will be, the Alan Turing, right? So what does Alan Turing feel about AI? How did it come to fruition? And he's actually the mathematician that mastermind artificial intelligence. So we just have another minute or so for the poll question. So if you can, please answer that poll question. Do you feel your chatbot initiative is a friend or a foe? Friend, foe, on the roadmap, or still in development?
Looks like we're still getting a steady stream of responses in, so I'll just give it another 10, 15 seconds and then I'll close the poll.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, so I'll close the poll now and share the answers.
All right, great. Thank you very much for that response. I like to see that it's on the roadmap, so we have some good responses there. Okay, so next thing we're going to cover is we're going to turn it back over to Clayton to give us a little background on Alan Turing. Clayton?
Thanks, Ed. I think Ed did a great job of highlighting how AI is shaping people, business, and industry. And from myself personally, I think it's great to see that there's an overwhelmingly positive attitude towards AI, with over 50% of you saying that to get chatbots implemented in your business is on the roadmap. But with any emerging technology, I actually think it's often useful to go back to the origin of it to gain perspective and a little bit of context around how these technologies have emerged. So when it comes to AI in particular, to chatbots in particular, though AI is of course relevant, I think it's a really good idea to have a look back to the 1950s and to a gentleman called Alan Turing. So for those of you who might have seen the film The Imitation Game, starring Benedict Cumberbatch in the role of Alan Turing, you may know that Alan Turing was a computer scientist and mathematician instrumental in decrypting the Nazi Enigma machine. But what you may not know is that Alan Turing is actually one of the founding fathers of AI, and he had a dream or an idea of humanity creating intelligent machines, which I think inadvertently planted the first seeds for artificial intelligence that we have in the modern world. So Ed, if you could just skip to the next slide. So back before artificial intelligence was even conceived, Mr. Turing expressed the idea in a quote that a computer would deserve to be called intelligent if it could deceive a human into believing that it was a human. Now, I think everyone on the webinar today can probably identify a few flaws intuitively with that statement, and it doesn't necessarily immediately boil down to things like the ethics of AI or anything like that. However, what I do think is important about this quote is that Mr. Turing did predict two important and fundamental aspects regarding how humanity would engage with and interact with AI in the future. And I'd like you to ponder what those could be whilst I return the conversation to Ed to discuss some chatbot trends.
Okay. Now, before we get to those trends, I think we have time for another quick poll question. So what is the main barrier facing your business with implementing AI technologies, such as chatbot? And some answers that are available are a complex and lack of knowledge of AI, the lack of in-house expertise, establishing clear business objectives, cost, or lack of data. So let's leave this open just for a couple more minutes. Give you some time to respond to these questions. Please answer those polls. All right. And we'll be covering some of the trends that we're seeing out there in the market around chatbot. So just another minute or so to answer our poll question.
Okay, it looks like pretty much everyone's voted, so I'll close the poll and there's the results.
All right. Clayton, what do you think about those results there?
I personally find it quite a little bit surprising, I have to say. I thought that complexity and lack of knowledge of AI tends to be one of the things that arises for us, as well as establishing clear business objectives. So, I mean, it's good to see, for example, that things like a lack of data, which provide a real, a very real barrier to implementing these technologies, isn't a barrier for a lot of the clients. And, things like establishing clear business objectives and a lack of knowledge of AI are probably among the most simplest things to remedy in, I guess, my and Brainpool's opinion. So I find that heartening.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Clayton. So let's move on to the trends, right? So what are some of the trends that we're seeing out there when it comes to AI chatbots? Well, one of the numbers, and I'm a numbers guy, right? So I like to hear these numbers. And when I hear a number of, let's say, 4%, well, that 4% is the percentage of service desks that are actively using chatbot as a support channel. So it's a little bit low, but as the maturity starts to grow, I see those numbers increasing. The next number we're going to take a look at is 99%. And this comes from a statement by Gartner, in which they predicted that 99% of AI initiatives in ITSM will fail due to the lack of an established knowledge management foundation. So it's very critical when you start looking at introducing a chatbot into your organization that you have an established knowledge foundation. The next number we're going to take a look at is 32%. Now, Axios recently did a survey, and only 32% of the companies surveyed believe that spending on IT would increase in the next 12 months. So the majority of the service desk are being asked to improve their performance, but with less resources. The next thing we'll take a look at is some of the issues that are causing those numbers, right? So IT service desks are dealing with increased numbers of interactions, but they're getting fewer resources each year. So the interactions are growing, but the resources are diminishing. So what are they faced with? They're now faced with using expensive, highly trained resources for low-level tasks because they have no choice. And then, depending on the type of business you have, your end users can do more to help themselves. And this is remedial action. But this can be limited by the technology that's available. And that is what we realize as KB vacuum. So all that activity that's being, let's say, resolved with your subject matter experts are staying in their brain. They're not providing that to the help desk and thus creating a vacuum of knowledge. And by creating that vacuum of knowledge, we can't expose that to the end users or even to our chatbots. But what if we can target, let's say, some of these simple issues and requests? So if we can get to a point where you can eliminate those simple issues and requests through full automation, through a self-service capability with a knowledge base, then you can actually start seeing some improvements. And when we talk about the self-service capability, we not only provide the self-service functionality, but also incorporate a chatbot. A lot of times end users will be more prone to interact with a virtual agent than navigate through the catalog and the knowledge base to get to their resolution. It's a lot easier just to start typing into a virtual agent session. So with that, I'm going to turn that back over to Clayton, and he's going to tell us about modern day interpretation.
Thanks, Ed. So as I mentioned before with Mr. Turing's quote, I don't necessarily think that his articulation that a computer could be considered intelligent if it were capable of deceiving humans to be necessarily correct or even relevant in the modern day. However, just because his quote is or idea is half-formed and a little bit flawed, it doesn't mean it's not without use. What Alan Turing did successfully capture within his quote is that well before AI was prevalent, there were two really important things that would characterize how we interacted with machines. For me, the first is that humans would interact directly and knowingly AI, illustrated by chatbots, and that for AI that humans did interact with, there would be a continual pursuit to try and make that AI and therefore the experience more human-like. So to cast a modern day interpretation over this quote, I don't think it's so much about deceiving people, but from the perspective of the business and the user, it's more about having a seamless and authentic experience that is very similar to interacting with another human, but AI affords all the benefits of that interaction, having all the capability of a machine. So on that note, I'd like to skip to the next slide, please, Ed, and have a bit of a look at the technology landscape and what actually shapes the chatbots that we interact with today and some of the user experience. So some of you may have heard of NLP. So NLP, which stands for natural language processing, is the core AI technology that enables chatbots to function. The primary responsibility of NLP is extracting meaning from text or speech. And without this technology, chatbots would not be able to function. It's essentially the engine that enables machines to understand and react to humans. And in order for chatbots to deliver that truly seamless and authentic experience, there needs to be continual evolution and improvement of NLP technologies. With that improvement of NLP technologies comes the trend of hyper-personalization. So I'm sure that you're all familiar in some way, shape, or form with personalization and how it's already being applied. Whether you're shopping on Amazon or exploring films on Netflix or looking for a new insurance product, you've probably experienced this kind of phenomenon already. What is different or not necessarily always understood is that the personalization a lot of us experience is not necessarily true personalization. It's more about understanding your past trends and behavior, or even people that are similar to you, and providing offers that that align to the segment that you've to the customer segment that you've been put in. But with chatbots and having intelligent machines that are able to understand our specific needs, that actually enables the opportunity for hyper-personalization. So machines being able to understand who you are, what you need, and what you're asking for in real time, and being able to adapt the service to what that specific user wants. Third-party integration. So when we've been talking about chatbots, and I think the pressure a lot of businesses feel can sometimes be to take ownership of developing this technology all by themselves, but that need not be the case. I think it's very clear that regardless of the technology that we're talking about, there are always pioneers and leaders that emerge, and I don't think that chatbots are going to be an exception. What may surprise you is actually who those leaders are. So, for example, Facebook is such a service with 2 billion users, an expansive amount of data set, both from Messenger, so the raw data that understands how people communicate and interact with each other, as well as from brands advertising on their platform. So within the future, I would not be surprised to see the likes of perhaps Google, Amazon, Facebook, perhaps even Apple emerge as leaders in this space and allow businesses to plug into the power of their technology and also the data which is required to make these drive these technologies, making it a lot simpler for much smaller businesses to take advantage of the advantages that Chatbot presents. And finally, payment technologies. I think everyone can relate to the fact that you want to present every opportunity for a customer to make a purchase or question the nature of a transaction without being overbearing or pushy when it comes to making a sale. And when it comes to payment technologies and payment management, I think that chatbots could represent a really great opportunity for a lot of businesses. Chatbots present the opportunity for businesses to understand where consumers are in their customer journey in discussions with a chatbot and identify situations that are relevant to the user, not the business, to create an upsell opportunity or provide a product recommendation that is suitable for the user. This can result in better customer satisfaction, but also increased sales and hopefully more relevant offerings. Sorry, Ed, I just realized I've kind of gone through all those points without prompting you to go through the remaining slides. Very sorry about that.
That's okay, Clayton, not a problem. So I'll just slowly go through the next few slides of NLP, hyper-personalization, right? Third-party integration, and chatbot payments. Now, as Clayton was speaking about all these areas around chatbot, I thought it would be great if we actually went through a use case scenario, right? So let's go through a use case where we would see most of this in action. And we're seeing this within Assist. So with the Assist integration into chatbot, we're actually going to see that use case actually taking place. So from the self-service portal, you'll see the end user would have that little integration into the chatbot. Here they would type in their question, and whatever that question may be, maybe it's the ordering of goods or services. In this example, we're asking, well, where are all my current requests? We'll provide a link where the user can click on that link and get that detailed information about all their current open tickets. Well, what if I'd like to actually place an order? Something maybe like an iPhone. When I select the iPhone, I'll come up with models. Select the model. Maybe additional information such as storage or even extended warranty for that iPhone. In addition to that, the scheduling of the delivery of that iPhone. That can all be part of my chatbot experience. Another area that I might want to take a look at is the current status of that request and easily see any updates that are being provided for that ordering of an iPhone through my chatbot. And maybe I want to see the status of that order at any time. In addition to the status of the order, maybe I'd like to also modify that order in some shape or form, like maybe change the delivery date for that particular order. That can also be easily accomplished through the Assist chatbot integration. Once I've done all this information, all that information is stored within the body of the ticket. All your chatbot conversations, integrations are all stored and easily tracked and reported on for the end users. So that's just one use case that you'll see here. Another area that we can cover, let's just click on that, is that there are other use cases. The sky is the limit when you start introducing chatbot into your ITSM world. Things like, allowing your users to find the right information at the right time with a quick link into your FAQ. Also, you can provide step-by-step instructions on some of your simpler high volume type tickets. You can automate some frequently asked activities like a password reset or the provisioning of goods and services. And not just that, but automate that provisioning and the deprovisioning so we can hide all those mundane tasks that users are frequently faced with through automation. Point your end users directly into a service catalog, allowing your users to find the right service request at the right time instead of searching through categories, bundles, and items. So now that we've talked about some different use case scenarios, what about the benefits? What are the benefits that I can realize with a chatbot? Well, Gartner predicted that IT service desks using AI capabilities will free up to 30% of support capacity. And that also by the end of 2020, 55% of all large enterprises will have deployed at least one chatbot in production. So when it's fully deployed, fully adopted, and driven by senior management, the benefits will justify the time and effort that you apply into implementing a chatbot. From 24/7 availability, faster ticket resolution, proactive engagement, and cost optimization. So to help realize this, let's look at some chatbot related metrics. So the biggest gain that you can gain from a chatbot is the metrics that it can provide you. You can actually be struggling to track these metrics right now from your current solution. So for example, with a chatbot, you can track coverage, the number of questions that the chatbot is able to answer correctly. You don't tend to get that information from a standard search engine unless there's an option like an assist such as, yes, this fixed my issue. Another area is accuracy, the usefulness of the answers the chatbot provides. So you can actually review the quality of the responses for each and every question asked to the chatbot. You'll get a report so you can easily see these questions that are not being addressed properly. And again, you don't tend to get that with a standard search engine. Another area is deflection. Okay, the number of contacts to the service desk the chatbot is able to handle without human intervention. One of your main justifications for doing this in the first place. And then finally, experience. The average customer satisfaction scores of this particular channel compared to your other channels, well, let's face it, employee happiness should be your primary KPI for all of your AI strategies. So at this point, I think we're about ready for another poll question. So let's open up those polls. So the question should be, now that you've seen the benefits and the trends of AI chatbot, do you feel it would benefit your ITSM solution? Okay. And of course, the answers are yes. Simple questions, right? Answer yes or no. Okay. So just take a couple of minutes. So, after everything you've seen so far in today's session, some of the benefits we've seen, some of the trends that we see with AI chatbot, some of the landscape of the AI industry, right? Do you really feel that this could benefit your ITSM solution? Okay.
It looks like most people have voted now, so I will close the poll and show the results. I think these results might shock you.
Yeah, I don't see the results on my
Shocking.
screen.
Oh, it's 100% yes.
Awesome. All right. So with that, I think I'm going to turn this over to Clayton. Clayton, take it away.
Thanks, Ed. So thank you very much for showing us some of the use cases and the benefits created by chatbots today. So far, I know that everything that I've talked about has been quite focused on the past. And so I think it's important to ask the question, what does this mean for the future? And what new trends can we expect to see around AI and chatbots? And from us at Brainpool, we think that this could mean a few things. The first is the less of a trend and more an imperative, but the need to do more with less data. So pretty much across every area and discipline of AI, there is a sustained focus on building models and technologies that are able to do more with less. In the case of chatbots, data, and I'm very happy to see it's not so significant a barrier for the people on this webinar, but data does represent a significant barrier to adoption. However, with the likes of third-party third-party providers that can help provide and increase the accessibility of the solution, combined with the evolution of the overarching technology, we suspect that within a 5 to 10 year timeline horizon, we can expect to see the democratization and therefore the proliferation of chatbots as they become a lot more commonplace. I think the second thing to consider is that AI and chatbots aren't the only area of the customer journey that are being impacted. AI and machine learning, data analytics, and business intelligence are all changing the approach that businesses have to doing what they do, trying to find ways to provide better access, provide better accessibility to customers, better satisfaction, and also change the fundamental core services that they actually provide. With this combined with the previous point that we touched on, doing more with less data, I think we are going to see an increasingly interconnected and trackable and monitorable customer journey, the data of which can all be extracted and actually fed into chatbots, increasing their competency and therefore the remit of the areas that they're able to assist customers with throughout their journey. Part and parcel with this, I think, is increased personalization. So already across multiple industries, there is a trend towards companies becoming more knowledgeable and intimate with the services, products, and offers that are extended to their customers based on who they are as a person. For companies that are looking to remain relevant and competitive, possessing and leveraging these insights are no longer a USP or a competitive advantage. It is emerging as the status quo. And for businesses that don't undertake these technologies, not just for chatbots, but to change their whole provision of service, I would be concerned about the longevity of those businesses. And then finally, on returning to what we talked about originally on the back of the Alan Turing quote, is the shift towards creating a more human-like experience. I think we've all encountered interactions with technology, chatbots being one of them, where the customer experience is lackluster and disappointing. I think that this is a function of not just the technological capability, but the gaps in the emotional needs of humans being met. At the end of the day, we are social people, and we want to be able to have that sense of connection and empathy, particularly when we're most likely to engage with chatbots, which is when we have a problem or a difficulty and we want sincerity and human understanding. So I think that all of the points that I just touched on then are actually ultimately leading to the creation of a more human-like experience. And so for me, if we can just go to the next slide, this kind of makes me ask the question, could humans prefer to interact with chatbots in the future? I actually think that this is a very simple question with a really complex answer, and it all comes down to a matter of perspective.
Clayton, as
Yeah.
we've got a bit of time left, what is your perspective on this question?
My perspective. So from my perspective, I really think it comes down to a few different things, and I won't list them out in any particular order. The first is the quality of the execution. So if companies insist on using chatbots, then the chatbots need to perform at a certain standard. That isn't necessarily saying that they have to have a chatbot solution that, you know, completely recreates a human. I don't think that that's feasible or what customers expect. But chatbots that are unable to service the needs that humans and customers think are, you know, legitimate and they should be able to, whilst also making that the main remedy to any kind of customer service challenge, I think is unacceptable. And I think for businesses who try and shift too deeply into this territory without an appropriate change management program, could very easily find themselves suffering when customers vote with their wallet and decide that they're fed up with substandard service and walk away. The second perspective, I think, is that of the human customer service representative. So as Ed touched on in our call, these are currently a very expensive and intelligent resource that are probably being underutilized on some of the tasks that they have to do. So if the approach to AI is about making humans redundant and cutting them out of the customer service process entirely, I think that will be seen as a threat or a foe to a lot of people, not just the representatives, but also the customers who expect and are kind of becoming to demand exceptional customer service just because of the standard that's being set out in industry. So I think if chatbots and also other AI applications are seen as augmenting and enhancing what humans are capable of, shifting the focus from them having to complete some of that drudgery work to actually tasks that require critical and creative thinking that create real value or resolve complex problems that the technology isn't up to scratch with dealing with, then it's a friend. If it's a way of simply cutting humans out of the loop entirely, then I think the answer is foe.
I agree. I agree on that, Clayton. And if I had some other areas that I've seen is that when organizations are looking to implement a chatbot, they really need to take a step back, right? Take a step back and actually look what is going to support my chatbot. You know, how strong is my knowledge base, number one? How strong are the articles and the procedures that I have maintained within knowledge management when it comes to IT service management? And in addition to that, how robust is my configuration management database where all my, let's say, all my CIs and service offerings are all defined and made available. So really need to step back and take a look at your current implementation of IT service management. And can this be the foundation that provides real value for my chatbots when I go to deployment? And then start out small. Try not to boil the ocean, right? When you start out with chatbots, pick, you know, maybe one particular service where you might want to start adding chatbot technology for. So it can definitely be a friend if you have all your building blocks in place, but it can also be a foe if you hurry it to deployment.
Yeah,
So
Ed, everything that you described just then in terms of starting small, having clear objectives and not rushing things are essentially part of what we consider to be best practice at Brainpool. I think where AI has been given a bad name for itself is not just in the hype in some of the hype that's happened in the industry over the years and the under delivery, but it's people and businesses not understanding the real whys of what they want to do things. If it's that they want to be seen as an AI leader for being the sake of an AI leader, or completely cut humans out of the loop by automating every element of their business, I think those are where the real tragedies happen when it comes to AI and also overarching business success. But those businesses that want to understand at the core what it is that they do and how to do it better, and come up with defining a very phased and staggered approach to AI. So it's not about building Rome in a day, but recognizing that AI has to have an enduring role in the business strategy, and that to a degree, if you want to use AI in your business, a part of your business continually has to focus on that. It's not something that can be a tick box exercise. Those are the businesses that make the most out of AI.
Totally agree.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you both for that. That was really interesting. I think I'd be interested to know your views on where service desks can sort of start with this. In my sort of opinion, I think if you're looking to use a chatbot to assist your support teams, for example, I think it's important to look at where your most common tickets and issues are coming from, and trying to feed that into your knowledge base and automating it as much as possible, so that your support teams can actually focus on more important tasks and they're not bogged down with very repetitive things.
Exactly. Yeah. Like what we had mentioned earlier in one of the slides was like, those repeatable offenses, right? The simple things that we're always getting calls about, such as password reset, or, my printer is broken, or my email is down. So if you can start taking some of those, common requests and introduce them into your chatbot, exactly, just like you mentioned, Scarlett, it'll open up the doors for your services staff to really, hone in on other areas and learn new skills. Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I guess building back on the point that we were making earlier, I think that there's a lot of industries, and I know it's not an example of AI, but technology being introduced in supermarkets for self-checkout. I think, although not AI, it's illustrative of a case where getting customers involved in solving their own problem, or being part of the solution might be a better way of phrasing it, can actually be really, really successful, but the infrastructure there to support them needs to be robust, and it needs to be relatively painless, because that's when customers throw their hands up in the air, because even the process of resolving their problem or their issue or their query or whatever you want to call it, that becomes a problem. And that is a very risky feedback loop to be caught in for any business.
Okay, fantastic. It looks like we are coming up to the end of the session today. I just want to say thank you both to Ed and Clayton. You've given us some really amazing insight and some actionable advice that the audience is going to take a lot away from. So thank you both for joining me, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.
You're very welcome, Scarlett. Thank you, and I hope everyone enjoyed it.
And stay safe.
Yes, stay safe.